Okay, welcome back to the lecture on how to build a JavaScript slideshow. The last one, we looked at most of the key concepts that we're going to employ. Today we're going to write a little code, and at the end of the lecture you should have built this. It's a fairly straightforward slideshow that's going to cycle through, in this case, 5 images. But of course you can add as many images as you want and just have to slightly tweak the code. Yeah, the first thing we're going to do is make a root directory into which we're going to save our project. So I'm going to call mine mcraddock slideshow. Now, inside of mcraddock slideshow, I'm going to make a folder called images. Now, inside of that folder, I'm going to copy and paste all of the images that I've already photoshopped and gotten ready for this lecture. Let me dig those up. Here we go. Copy images, paste. Notice I've got 5 JPEGs, my 5 pictures. Then I've got the gray 1 pixel square GIF that I asked you guys to build. So at this point, let's fire up Dreamweaver. And let's make a HTML page. File, new, HTML, HTML5. Up here in the title, let's call it JavaScript slideshow. Create. Now let's go ahead and do a file, save, and surf to your root directory. mcraddock slideshow. And we're going to call this, you guessed it, index.html. Now we are going to need a style sheet, so we're going to come over here to our CSS designer and click the plus sign, create a new CSS file. We're going to call it style, and we're going to add it as a link. Okay. And now you see up here I've got a style sheet blank, as well as the source for the HTML. Now, if you're now working in Dreamweaver, you know the drill. You just have to make another page in Notepad or whatever you're using, call it style.css, and put it in the root directory for this project. You'll then have to go in and write a link up in your header to link to the style sheet. Link href equals style.css, rel equals style sheet, type equals text CSS. Dreamweaver did it for us, so we're going to move right on. Right under the link, I'm going to go ahead and start a JavaScript. Script language equals JavaScript. Let's make sure I didn't bug it up. There we go. Then go down a ways and close that script. Oops. Now all our JavaScript is going to live between these 2 tags. Before we get down and dirty with the function, I want to create an array to contain all of my photos. It'll make it easier to call them in my JavaScript, and it also forces the browser to preload the images so it won't hang the first time it runs on you. So the way we make an array is the same way we make a variable. We go var, and let's call our array pics equals. Now here's where it gets a little woolly. We do a square bracket, And you can write what's inside of this all in one big long line. I like to bust it up because it's easier to look at. But now we're just going to list all of our images by file name. Go quote images. My first one is fire.jpg. Close quote, and then a comma. Go down to the next line. Quote images / basketball.jpg, comma. Another one, images / heritage.jpg, comma. Quote images / volleyball. And then we have the close bracket. And right after the close bracket, we have to put a semicolon, because that's essentially one line of JavaScript. You know, we could have run it all the way across the page, but it's just easier to look at like this. Now, of course, your array won't say fire, basketball, heritage, volleyball. Volleyball.jpg. Your array is going to have the names of your photos in them. If you're in Dreamweaver, you can do a double check to make sure you got it right by just scrolling over the URL. Oh, this image is not found. So let's go back and let's see what's up with that. Volleyball.jpg, volleyball.jpg. Oh, images. There we go. Now, if you recall, arrays are just like variables, except you call them by number, and they start counting at 0. So if I were to type PIX bracket 0, I would be talking about this very first image. If I were to change that to pix1, that of course means this image, and so on and so forth. Pix4 would be the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm missing a picture. What picture do I know? Oh, pumpkin. That's right. Okay, somewhere I didn't copy one. Let's see. So let's copy it. Oh, it's in there. I just have to put it in here. Let's kind of squish it in the middle here. Images / pumpkin.jpg. And then a comma. You can't forget these commas, and you can't forget these quote marks, or everything will break. So now I've got pix0 through pix4, 5 images for my slideshow. So let's start writing the other variables we're going to need to pull this off. The first, as we referred to in the last video, is var x equals 0. That creates the variable x and sets it to 0. That's going to be our increment in our function, basically the initial state in our for loop that we're not really writing. We're also getting another variable, var y. And we're not going to declare a value for this. We're just going to declare the variable. It will become obvious to you later as to why. So this variable sets the initial state of x, and this variable y, you'll find out later what it's for. Okay, let's write a function. Function, I'm going to call this one my slide. So of course we spell out function, we give our function a name and go open parentheses, close parentheses. Now, as we talked about in the last video, our first line is going to be an if statement. We need the test to see exactly what state x is in. So let's go if x is less than or equal to 4. Then we're going to write some JavaScript. Because basically, again, our array pix goes from pix 0 to pix 4. So we want x to cycle from 0 to 4. So the line of JavaScript we're going to do to put a picture on the page is document get element by ID. Oh, we haven't written the JavaScript yet. Okay, we're putting the cart before the horse, but that's okay. We're going to call this image the slide. Let's put that in quotes. We'll have to remember that later when we're writing the HTML. Source equals, we're going to go pix x. So let's think about this. The source of the image tag that's going to contain our slide photo is going to be from the array pix, and it's going to be whatever number x happens to be. So it'll go pix 0, pix 1, pix 2, pix 3, pix 4. And that's exactly what we want it to do. We're going to write a second line, document get element by ID. Call this one caption. Source equals oh no, not source. We're going to go inner HTML because we're going to write some text in here. And we're going to say caption for, put that in quotes, and then a plus, and then we're going to go pix x. So this is going to make a string that reads caption for, and then the name of whatever photo is up there. Let's put a semicolon. So those are our 2 lines. Now the last thing we need to add, because we need to make this fully functional for loop essentially, is the increment for x. Let's go x equals x plus 1, which, as we learned in the last video, is exactly the same as x plus plus in a for loop. So our function is complete. Let's write some HTML. Okay, down here in the body, let's create a div kind of to contain the whole thing. I want to stovepipe it and have it centered on the screen. So let's do a container div, and we'll give this an ID. Ooh, typos are us. ID equals container, slide container. Slide underscore container. And that's the first one after body, so that's going to be the last one before close body. Now everything else we write is going to be inside of this container div. And the first thing let's do is put a headline in here. A simple Java, not all caps, simple JavaScript slideshow. Close the H1. Now let's do an image tag, because each of our pictures is going to load into an image tag. Image source equals images / gray dot give. ID equals the slide. Remember, that's what we did up here in our JavaScript. So here's our ID that makes it all work. And then we're going to go P ID equals caption. Again, that's because up here in our JavaScript, we called a tag whose ID is caption. That's going to be this P. And let's close the P. Oops. Now what I'm going to put in between this is a non-breaking space. I want something in here because otherwise it's going to jump around a little bit when the caption runs. So if you recall our special characters, we go ampersand NBSP, and that makes a non-breaking space. So now the last thing we need is buttons to make this run. So let's go input type equals button, class equals button. That way we can make our style sheet work for both buttons. Value equals start. This is the one that's going to start our slideshow. And now we're going to do an event handler. On click equals, you might have guessed this by now, we're going to do my slide print. So this button is going to say start, and on click, it's going to look for the function my slide up here, and it's going to run it. So that's how we launch our slideshow. Now I'm going to do another button right next to it. Input type equals button, class equals button. Okay. Value equals stop. And on click equals, we're just going to leave that blank for now. I'll show you that at the end. Okay, so we've got a headline, we've got an image, we've got a paragraph where we're going to drop the caption, and we've got buttons to start and stop. So now let's write some style for these. Let's come over here to Style CSS. And first I'm going to style up the slideshow container. I'm going to go width 800 pixels, margin right, auto, margin left, auto. This is so that our container div will be centered in our browser window. And then I don't want it to start at the very tip top. I want it to start down a little bit. So I'm going to go margin top. Oh, what should we do? Maybe 200 pixels. Oops. Let's try that. That looks a little better. No, that doesn't. How about that? Okay. Now let's style up the H1. Font family. Let's do Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. Oh, and let's spell things right. Font size. What are we thinking? How about 42 point? Oh. And font weight. Let's do 800. We want it fairly bold. Okay, now let's go hashtag the slide. So let's add some style to our image tag. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go display block. This way you will see the image tag as a block level tag, and I won't have to use a break to go down to the next line. It'll think of it like a div or a p tag or anything else. So we're going to make it a block, and let's go width 800 pix. Oh, px 800 pixels. Recall in the previous lecture I told you I made my pictures 800 pixels by 500 pixels. If you made yours different size, this is where you're going to have to input it. And let's give a little margin on the bottom. 20 pixels, so that the caption doesn't run into it. So now let's try the style for that p tag caption. Font family. We'll stick with the Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. Well, it looks like you even typed it correctly this time. Okay, font size. Let's go 14 points. And let's go font weight 500. We'll make it just right in the middle average. And then let's go font style italic. Yeah. Then the last thing we're going to do is style up our buttons. Now remember, I gave them the class button, not the ID. So to invoke them, we have to go period button. And let's give it a background color. Wheat. When I did this before, that looked kind of nice, and it saved me getting hexadecimal. So we'll go wheat. Font size 12 point. This is how big is the text going to be inside of the button. The stuff that we typed in value. Color black. We want our text to be black. Then we're going to go margin left 20 pixels. And margin right 20 pixels. This way, the two buttons won't bump into each other because they're side by side. They'll be cushioned away from each other. So now, just to be fancy, let's do another button. TTLN. But this time, let's add the pseudo element hover. So when we mouse over this button, let's make the background color. Oh, let's go red. And we'll change the color, the text color, to white. That way we get a little feedback when we mouse over the button. That's all the CSS will need. And if we take a look here, our page is looking like this. Let me get a browser window going. close all this. This is the old one, which ought to be the same as the new one. So we'll drop this in. Oh! Okay, I see right away. We've got some CSS problems. So let's start with the container. Slideshow container. Width, margin right, margin left, margin top. Looks okay. H1 font family, Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. Font size 42. Font weight is 800. The slide. Display block, width, height, margin bottom. Caption. Font family. Oh, well, there's one. Font size. Font style. Button. Okay. So I don't think that that was enough to blow us up. So let's go back and look at this. Div ID equals slide underscore container. And this indeed, oh, slideshow container. Let's try that. Okay, we're halfway there. We just gotta make this center up. And I bet we do that by going up here, text, align, center. Let's add that to our container div. And lo and behold, there we go. So now our page should be locked and loaded. And what do you think is going to happen when we hit start? Let's see. We got our first picture and nothing else. This actually makes absolutely perfect sense. If we go back here, we've got all the three parts of our loop in here, but we don't have the magic ingredient that makes it loop. And that was the set timeout statement. Actually, the set timeout method. So we're going to go set timeout, my slide, paren, comma, 3000. And then, of course, the semicolon at the end, as always. So what's going to happen here is function mySlide is going to run once, then it's going to come to this set timeout, and that's going to tell it to run mySlide again, but not until 3 seconds have gone by. So this is what actually makes this function loop. And what we ought to see here, let's reload it so we're back at the gray. Click start. We've got our first image, second image, third image. Oops, it's broken. Okay, fourth image, fifth image. Now notice it stopped. We went once through the slideshow. Well, that tells us one thing. Our function's working, but that's not much of a slideshow. You go through 4 pictures, one of which was broken, and then it stops. So what we need to do is come up with a way to set x back to 0 after it's hit 4 so that we can start the loop all over again. So what we'll do here, we have if x is less than or equal to 4, we do this. But right at the end of that, what if we go else? In other words, that means, if the if statement is false, which it would be, then let's just go ahead and set x back to 0. X equals 0, semicolon. So now if we look at the logic of this, first time into the pool, x equals 0, all of this runs. X gets incremented by 1. Set timeout runs, so it goes back. X is 2, and so it runs. X is 3, then it runs. X is 4, then it runs. Next time through, X is 5, and it doesn't run. But the else statement kicks in, resets the X to 0. Then when the set timeout runs, it all goes over again. Let's give this a whirl. And let's see how this works. We'll fix the broken image in a minute. Okay, cross your fingers, hold your breath. Bingo. We're back to the beginning. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is how we stop the slideshow. We've got this magic method called set timeout. Well, I'm going to put a little line in here. I'm going to go y equals set timeout. You remember up here when we made the variable y and we kept it empty? I said you'll find out why later. Well, if we put this set timeout command into a variable, we can call it. And we're going to call it down here in the stop button. Oh, let's rewrite that on click. We're going to go clear timeout. Then in the parentheses, we're going to put y. Now what this says is we're going to run the method clear timeout, which clears whatever set timeout we've done. But we have to tell it which set timeout to clear. In this case, it's the one that's stuck in the variable y. So we go clear timeout y. We put this set timeout into the variable y. So this command shuts down this loop, and our slideshow will stop. And let's see how that works. Okay, let's get to a real picture. There we go. Stop. And now we're good. Oh, stop. Okay. It didn't work. So let's see why. Clear timeout y. Y equals set timeout. My slide, 3000. On click equals clear timeout. Y. Oh my. Well, here's what I'm going to do because tape is rolling. I'm going to open the page that I built before we went into this to make sure it all worked. And let's see, y set timeout, my slide 3000. Y set timeout, my slide 3000. Let's go down here to this button. Clear timeout Y. I'm just going to steal this whole button. And let's go back to here and let's take a look. Okay, on click equals clear timeout Y. Y is set timeout my slide. We know that works. Okay, let's give her a whirl again. Bingo. Okay, I must have put a typo somewhere in this unclick. It's solved. We're fine. One of the last things I'm going to do here is find out what, oh, it's pumpkins. Come up here, call this pumpkins, so that runs. And now we have a complete slideshow that cycles through 5 pictures. This basically is everything you need to complete the JavaScript assignment. Because of the situation, everyone does the slideshow. What I would hope you can do is find a way to rise above this code that I am handing to you. You know, perhaps you actually put captions in for real. And one hint, the way you do that, at least in the start, is to make another array with a bunch of captions in it. At the very least, you should integrate this slideshow into an HTML design that rises well above this. At any rate, that's the assignment. All the code will be posted. Hopefully yours worked better than I. Hopefully you made a few less typos than I. And we'll see you again next time.